forever. I'll always love it. I love a whistle.
Yeah.
I'm
I want to real
never going to
quick
be.
go see why doors are
I know
opening
this sounds
out
crazy,
here.
but I have to pee again too because I'm trying to hydrate because I feel so dehydrated from
I'm
that
going first.
nightmare.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm here.
Maybe I can wait. Do I have enough? Do we feel like we're going to be? No, I can go after he gets back. I'll keep you company because
You're
there's no
fine.
way that we're going to be like ready to roll the
No,
second he
there's
comes
no
back.
way. I mean, it's
No.
him. Also, the whistling thing, he does it all the goddamn
I
time.
know.
Like you guys think it's
And I
cute
brought
because
it
you only
up.
deal with him for an hour.
Yeah. Yep. It's
all
true.
the time. All the time.
I know.
That's
I know.
why
I get Bob Ruff light, L-I-T-E,
I
and
know.
you get
I love him.
full Bob
I
all
love
the
him.
time.
He's my dear friend. He's one of
I
my best friends in the whole world.
I know.
But like, I deal with him way more than you guys do. And you guys get the cute version.
Danielle, yeah. What's happening? How are you missing that pregame? Get in here earlier.
What are you doing? You're even like part of this.
Here. Yeah.
Jeez, this is why we can't have nice things.
Colin. Hey, Joshua. Well, I was going to say Josh, and then I was like, I don't know if Josh wants me to call him Josh or Joshua. Joshua.
I'm super bad about that. I'm super bad because my name is Zachary, and I've always gone by Zach, so I just shorten. Yeah. Obviously, I shorten mine, so I just shorten everybody's.
I do too. Or if you just have a friend, like if you have a close friend who, you know what I mean, always has used a nickname, you're like, I'm assuming this other person uses that nickname, and like we can't assume that.
I've gotten so lazy that I have a guy that works for me. His name is TJ, two letters, and I just started calling him T. I'm like, I'm done. Like,
yeah, you know what I would do with that is call him Tej. I like to, I definitely have my friend PJ. I call Peej. My friend PG, who doesn't go by PG, he just goes by Paul. I call him Peej. But yeah, Tej. That's what I would say.
Tej. Yeah, just call him T. Are those their real names, or is that's just like initials?
Initials.
Okay. I have.
Do you have friends who just have a? It's
I have
AJ or something, and it's.
I have my cousin's kid is named KJ, and that's his like legal name.
Cool.
Her and her husband got in a fight over it because his name is Kyle, and he wanted to name him Kyle Jr. Yeah. She's like, I'm not calling him Kyle. She's like, we'll call him KJ. She's like, if we're gonna call him KJ, we're just gonna name him KJ.
Yeah.
So his legal name is KJ.
KJ, that's amazing. Do you know why his official name is KJ?
I just told you.
Oh, sorry, you just said it. Sorry, you just said it.
Jiminy Christmas. It's all right.
I was just making sure I had all the. I just pulled a U because I was just making sure that the questions were coming up right.
I know. I was doing that earlier when you guys were talking. I was pulling everything up. Yeah, no, because they didn't. I'll go over it again though, because they didn't want to call him Kyle Jr.
Kyle Jr. Yes.
So
that's funny. I like totally heard that, and then I just didn't register that that's what you said.
All good.
Yeah.
I like to tell everybody though, TJ's name stands for all sorts of things that it doesn't, like Tiberius Jackson and.
Ooh, Tiberius Jackson would be fun. Oh, we call my son LJ for little Josh. That's cute.
Nice. I like it. Josh, never mind. I was going to ask if you call. Oh, God damn it. If you call your son LJ and then they call you BJ.
Stop it. Yeah, well, and people go by BJ, even though some of us think of that as meaning something.
Yep.
You know, my son is smart and dumb.
Mine too. Mm-hmm. I really wish you wouldn't have touched my face. I don't know how everybody saw that, but
so Quentin is getting ready to drive to Lansing.
Oh, that son.
Yeah. No, that one. He's yet to prove it himself, the younger one yet. No, smart kid. Yeah, obviously super smart kid. And then he's out there in his car, and then I wonder what Jana's doing.
She's letting the dog out.
Oh, she didn't go to the bathroom when I went?
She's letting the dog out.
Oh. Yeah, and then I'm talking, his windows, both windows are down. He goes, all right, I'm leaving. And he starts to drive away, and I come inside, and then I hear, and I run out and flag him down halfway out the driveway because my air compressor, my DeWalt air compressor is still attached to his tire and is going like, how you don't hear these? I heard something. Like, you just gonna keep driving? Fucking idiot.
If he drives far enough, it'll stop.
Exactly. I was always here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He's like, that's not the first or even the fourth time that's happened, Dad. I'm like, you know that thing costs like $200. You're just bouncing around the side of your car down the road. Stupid idiot. Stupid idiot. Driving to Lansing. That's up by me. Well, Josh, if you see a kid with a car with a bumper literally taped on and an air compressor flopping around on one of the tires, that's my son.
Hold on. It's a college town. That's probably happening a lot.
Yeah, it's probably not the only. I feel like it'd be the only one with the air compressor.
Maybe the only one with the air compressor, but the taped bumper.
Both my kids have been griping about their cars because they both done stupid shit with their cars. You know, so Quentin's literally his bumper's taped on because one of the days when the guys came to play cards here, it was in the wintertime and it was snowing. Of course, I had plowed the driveway, so there's like snow heaps on the side, and it's a little Chevy Cruze.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, I remind him every week on Thursday, like the poker guys are coming. So if you're going to want to go anywhere, get your car out of the driveway so they don't block you in. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. And then he decided an hour later he wanted to go somewhere and decided to just back his little Chevy Cruze up over the giant ice heap into the yard to get around all the cars and ripped his whole bumper off.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And Bella's car, I don't know what the issue, like she claims to not know how this happened, but she came home one day and like not the bumper, but like the part underneath the bumper is like split in half and bouncing around all over. She's like, Dad, my car's broken. I'm like, what did you do? I don't know how that happened. Might have been we were at my friend's house for a party and it was like back in a field and I drove my little Hyundai Elantra that's this high off the ground through a cornfield. Maybe that was it. I don't know.
No. Yeah.
Oh, what's up, Erica Cantor? Erica 1?
Erica 1?
Erica
1. Erica 2, new Erica is mad at me. You guys remember when I set up our group chat and I sent you guys that picture?
Yeah.
Of her during our lunch break? Yeah. I might have showed that to the fella at the trivia game with us.
Oh boy.
In my defense, she started it. She made some smart ass comment to me, and I was like, "Sure you want to do that?" But she told me that she's requiring a 300-word apology to be on her desk tomorrow when she comes in. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I mean, I think you can just type sorry once and then copy and paste it 300 times and then just.
I think you call her bluff. I think you do it. I think you type sorry 299 times and see
if she
counts it. She counts it. I like that. That's pretty smart ass. I appreciate that very much.
Well, I always say, and now I can't remember what the hell was the movie from. It's a quote from a movie, but it said, "I'd like to start my 3-part apology." God damn it! Now I need to look up that movie because I can't remember what movie that was from. So that's our always running bit, as I always say. I'd like to start my 3-part apology, and then we make each other actually come up with a 3-element apology for whatever smartass thing we said to each other.
Cute.
And so I said that last night that I'd like to start my 3-part apology, and she said I need a 300-word apology. Type double space on my desk.
Isn't there one
fired that back at you quick
like that? It's like, this is my public apology. I'd like to offer you my private
Zombieland.
apology.
Mandy says Zombieland.
That's right. It was from Zombieland. Yeah, he says something to Woody Harrelson, and then as soon as he like snaps his head back, and he's like, "I'd like to start my 3-part apology." Now I want to watch Zombieland. I haven't seen that one in a while. That's a good one. Good pull, Mandy. Good pull. And I know I watched it recently because you know how she never gets any of my movie references not because I'm old, but because she's young. And so then I always have to like pull it up on YouTube and say, "See, this is why that's funny," because it's always funnier if you have to explain it. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you know I'm young.
Always funnier. Always funnier.
You are
I'm in my 30s.
For what?
I'm in my 30s.
8 more days? 9 more days?
I'm in my 30s.
Oh, speaking of which,
young child.
I may just be about to really fuck something up here. I don't think so. What do you plan on doing Friday night for your birthday?
I think we're going to see Brad Williams.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a surprise. That's what I was checking.
Oh. Yeah.
Good job, Bob.
Yeah. Because we were going too.
Oh, sweet, awesome, hell yeah.
Nice.
So that was a surprise. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is what I need to know. What time does that show start?
I don't know. I didn't take care of any of that.
True. Okay. Brian
does.
Brian, you're in the chat.
Brian.
Brian, what time does Brian Williams start? Because here's the thing.
His name is Brad Williams. Brian Williams is probably somebody else.
Yeah, Brad Williams. It's not Brady. Brad.
Grayson.
Yeah, so we just got the schedule to move Bella into college, and
Mhm.
her move-in date is Friday the 23rd at like 2:30.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and we gotta have
And
time to
how
like.
far away is she going?
She's been a little over an hour away.
You
Yeah,
got
right.
this. You
So
got
if it's like an
this.
8:00 show, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess it's 7 or 8. It's got to be later.
Yeah. I'm
Brian,
hoping
Brian,
Brian,
Blanchett.
do something, Brian. Come on, this is why you're here. Yeah, but I was like, why does the 23rd sound so familiar to me? And I was like, oh shit, that's Zach's birthday. Oh shit,
Mhm.
that's the day that for Zach's birthday we're going to see Brad Williams.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that all.
Do you know who Brad Williams is, Janet?
No.
He's a little person comic.
Nice.
Very, 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 very funny.
Nice.
Very,
I'll have to
very
check him
funny.
out.
He has a lot of material about being a little person, but then he also has a lot of he's just a funny comic. He has a lot of good material. So
9:30, perfect. Solid.
Oh, you're golden.
That gives me time to get back and take a nap because 9:30. What the fuck? Like that's past my bedtime.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, is he performing till 10? Like, how long is this going?
Yeah. We've done by 10, right?
Ah.
Okay. Yeah. Also, next week is going to be. I'll mention that. Well, I'm hoping. I'm still trying to arrange the interview, but next week's episode is going to be an interview of some kind. I'm working on doing an interview from one of the mothers from Benton Harbor, because so next week is my first week back to school where I'm doing PD the whole week. It's when Erica's shifting over to full time, and I'm moving 2 of my kids into college and have back to school night for the other one.
Wow.
So we were like sitting last week. We're like, do an interview for next week.
Great.
Push that outward because I don't know when we're going to be able to write anything.
Fair enough.
So you're saying you're busy.
Yeah, next week's going to suck. It's going to suck also because it's not going to be hard dropping Quentin, because we were been through this with Quentin. With Quentin, I'm just moving him back into school. It's no big deal. He's excited to go back. But I have to drop my baby girl off at college on Friday, and that's going to be that's going to be a bad one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to be such a mess. You better bring so many Kleenexes.
Yeah, I should do something that night after I'm done crying that will make me laugh. What could I do?
What could you do? What could you do?
I made Bob listen to Rachel Feinstein's special. So yeah, she knows who she is.
Yeah, I sure do.
Have you seen the special? It's hilarious. The whole thing.
I know. She's so funny.
Yeah, and the whole thing is about being married to a fireman. So I like relate.
I'm sure I told you about this.
I think you both did.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. All right, we're ready to start the. So Brian says show starts at 9. Perfect. That shouldn't be a problem. That'll give us time for me to get her moved in, cry for an hour.
Yeah.
Take her out to dinner.
Yep.
Come back, cry for another hour.
Yes.
Come back.
Yeah.
And then get to the show. That's the plan.
Great.
That's the plan. Because she's gonna rip my heart out. I can't stand it because she was giving me a ride somewhere yesterday, and I was like, excited about school? Because Quentin's like, I cannot wait to get back to MSU. I'm so excited to go back. I'm like, well, fuck me then, I guess. Right? Bella, I'm like, are you ready to you ready to go to school? You ready to start college? And she's like, yes.
Oh,
I'm like, yeah. She's like, I'm a little nervous to be away from you guys.
Oh,
like,
Bella.
like, no, I need you to be like, get out of here, guys. I'm ready to start
Get
partying.
out of here, old man.
Yeah. She is that one that if she and she knows it too. If she cries, I cry, no matter what. Can't handle it.
Yeah. Love it.
Why love it? It's terrible. It's the worst thing ever.
It's charming and adorable.
Okay, we're gonna end this pregame episode, which I did record, by the way. Thanks for asking, everybody. So we'll see you later, pre-gamers. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye, gamers.
Bye.
Say it with a funny voice.
Bye.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
All right, now we're gonna hit record on the big show. Recording. 1, 2, 3.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up for Season 15, Episode 7, The Alternate Suspect. Two names were the main topic of gossip surrounding DeMario's murder, Jody Hill and Carvel Miles. This week was every bit as complex as it was confusing, and we have a lot of listener questions. Bob, Janet, and I are here to discuss it all, but before we get into that, let's talk about the Berkshires really quick.
But real quick, you found this episode to be confusing? What's wrong with you?
Let me Let me just speak for all the listeners really quick. When I say, what?
Yeah, dude, listen, and we'll get into the Berkshires for just here in a second. But I need to tell you guys, just in full transparency and in real talk, I have never been so frustrated. So this is what I pride myself on when we do these episodes, right? Kind of, if I were to break down like at a very like basic level of what I do, is to take the complex and try to make it understandable and try to find connections and tie things together. Every week for 1,000 episodes, we go through and we pull all the, like you saw on the board, the stuff we're working on this week. That's how we do it every week. It's like, okay, here's all the elements. Here's all the case documents that involve this person, this thing. How do they line up? How do they piece? And we figure out how they piece together, where they divert. And that's how we find the things that we find in this episode or in each segment of the case. And this one, it was like, we were just doing that and doing that and doing that. And it was like, how do they fit? And we were looking for, me and Erica, like, okay, in the end, somehow we tie this together. And then it was, when we got to the part at the end, it was like, okay, at least we can do this. We have the alibi for Carvale, where Carvale says he was. Let's check the other witness statements that saw all these same people that night, and let's either confirm or deny that he was there or not there. And then we went through, and so Erica's, I'm like, all right, what does Andre Williams say? She says what he says. Well, that's weird. What does Canvas say? And she's that weird. I threw my legal pad across the room at one point. I was like, how? Nothing.
You think there would be like an accidental anchor in there somewhere?
Nothing.
Right. An accidental anchor is a good way of putting it.
It's like these people were all living on completely different planets that night. It was like nothing tied together. And that's been a kind of the issue with a lot of the things with this case. I know a lot of the episodes are kind of confusing. And it's because, in my opinion, it looks like you have a combination of everybody's lying, especially once they came and start offering reward money. Everybody's lying. Everybody's got a different story. Everybody's saying something different. Plus, there's the fear factor is why people are lying. And then on top of that, you have law enforcement lying on top of it because they're trying to manipulate things to create the case. So and then there's things that have been pulled out of the case file too. So I've said this, weeks ago where I was like, in this case file, it's a weird one because you get into, okay, I read this. Now I have this question. The next page should have the answer to that question, and it's just not there. The question doesn't get answered, So it was. So I feel you.
Yeah,
I was very confused, and actually I had sent it to Janet Friday because Eric and I were both like, this is so confusing. This is just a jumbled up mess. We got it a little more because we had spent a week doing it, so we kind of were able to track it a little better. Sent it to Janet, and Janet's like, what'd you say, Janet? You were like, for minute 20 to 30, I don't know what's happening. Yeah. So the little disclaimer at the beginning came after my conversation with Janet. It was like, I got to at least put something because I don't want people, because people tune in and they're thinking, okay, this is going to get complex and confusing, but it's all going to come together in the end.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to know up front, it is not going to come together in the end. It will never come together. Still more questions than answers. But I do want to talk to you guys all about the Berkshires Podcast Festival. You guys have heard me talk about it in the past. It's going to be the weekend of October
18th to the 20th.
Yeah, 18th through the 20th. In the Berkshires, which is a lovely area in New England, especially that time of year in the full fall foliage. It's great. Our good friend Josh Hallmark from True Crime BS is hosting this thing. I have not really known what it was. As I said in our pregame, generally, if Josh Hallmark says, "Hey Bob, will you?" my answer is yes before we finish the sentence. So that's pretty much what happened here. But I got on the phone with him this week to get an idea of like what is this event, and it sounds really, really cool. So if you have been on the fence about it, there's a few things you need to know. This is not anything like the big. Is most of you guys know? I'm pretty much done with these big conventions. I swore off CrimeCon a while ago. I'm a True Crime obsessed, which it's just. You go to these things, there's thousands of people, you're just running around like crazy. And, for CrimeCon example, one of the reasons I don't want to go is because the listeners they spend $300, $400, $500, depending what level they're at, to get there so that they can stand in a room with thousands of people and wait in a line for an hour to take a 10-second picture, with the podcaster they went to go see him for 10 seconds and snap a picture with them. It's a meet and greet or something. This, the Berkshires Podcast Festival is a very small, intimate setting, and it's done that way on purpose. So like the maximum capacity for this thing is 350 people. And the way that it works, the main event is Saturday, and it's this Josh said it's this old like textile mill that has been redone. It's like this beautiful event venue. It's one huge room. So all of your favorite podcasters that you're going to see will all be there all day hanging out. And there's one stage, and every hour there'll be a different group of podcasters that are going to go up and do their thing. And the rest of us will just be hanging out the whole time. So like if you go to this, you'll just literally get to hang out with the podcasters that they're going to see. So it sounds just really awesome. Plus, it's in the Berkshires. There's like a 2-hour break for dinner that night where there's going to be food offered there at the venue, but also Josh has a bunch of recommendations for people who can get out in the town and really check out North Adams, I think is the name of the town that it's in. And the event it's $125, but actually I have a promo code for you guys that bring it down to even just $100. But to give you an idea of who's going to get there, I'm just going to run through real quick the what's going to be going on that day, so you can see who's going to be there. There's like a podcast row for 90 minutes at the beginning where we'll all be standing by our tables where you can go walk around and meet people. And then at 11:25, Josh introduces things. And then you've got the first one is Law and Crime, and that's with Andy Cassette, Bob Mata, Jessica Prey. That's Defense Diaries and Love Murder. Then we're going to have Eric Carter Landon, Melissa Leanweber, Whitney St. Andre. I don't know a lot of these people. I'm looking forward to meeting them. Kristen Seavey, then that's True Consequences, Navigating Advocacy, and Murder, She Told. And then we have Dr. Amy, Dr. Scott, and Dr. Shiloh. That's from LA Not So Confidential and Women in Crime. They're going to be there. Then we got Lainey Hobbs, Robert Palmer, Robin Warder, Charlie Worrell from True Crime Cases with Lainey, The Broken System, The Trail Went Cold, and Crime Lines. And I'm realizing this is going on too long, so I'm just going to tell you the podcasts that are going to be there. The Only One in the Room will be there. Zach and I will be there. Perhaps Janet. True Crime BS, Somewhere in the Pines, they're going to be there. Where we got Wine and Crime is going to be there. Alvin from Affirmative Murder is going to be there. Justin and Aaron from Gen Y are going to be there. And then the closing show for the night is the Karen and Ellen Letters and Live Laugh Larceny. So like those are the podcasters that are going to be there. So you can hang out with us, with Bob Mata, with Justin and Aaron. Anyway, it's going to be all those people there. And with this promo code that I'm going to give you now, and Erica, I'll have you put this in the description too with the link. So you go to True Crime Podcast Festival, or excuse me, Berkshire's podcastfestival.com, I believe. And because we're getting late and the closer you get to it, travel and stuff is going to be a little bit more. Josh wanted to offer a promo code for anybody that's going to maybe have to pay a little more to travel because it's less because of the timing. So if you use the promo code Fall Into the Sound, all one word, Fall Into the Sound, it's 20% off your ticket sales. So it's $100 to go hang out. And if you're interested in going, I would suggest going or like getting those tickets like right now, because I think there's already, I don't know, somewhere around 200 tickets that have already been sold, and the maximum is 350. It was designed and intended to be a small, intimate event where we could all hang out together. So just wanted to let you guys all know that, because after talking to Josh on Monday about it, I'm really excited about it. So hopefully you guys will be able to attend. And again, I said again as though I remember what that promo code is, but let me read it again. Fall Into the Sound. That's 20% off. That puts your ticket price at $100 to come hang out with us in the Berkshires.
BerkshirePodcastFestival.com.
Berkshire, not a S at the end.
No S.
BerkshirePodcastFestival.com. All right. That's all I have to say about that. So you heard about my confusion, Janet. What were your thoughts after 2 or 3 listens of this episode?
Well, you heard about my confusion as well. But yeah, I did listen to it a handful of times. I mean, again, I think the listener is in the same position that you and Erica were, as you're struggling to kind of find what Zach defined as a kind of accidental anchor. Like you're sort of hoping that something is going to kind of rise to the surface that feels like something you can hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, everything feels like very nebulous and it's very confusing. But I do feel like there were some points that came out in this episode that we can talk about. Not the least of which is this kind of idea of like just how anything stuck, because the investigation itself and the evidence that as we understand it, it just doesn't make any sense. So again, it's just another, for me, like nail in the coffin of the case of like, what, how did this, happen?
Well, the thing that jumped out at me that I had completely, and I think it was because I was just like filling in blanks in my mind in the first episode when I kind of walked through what Mario's movements were that night. I kind of used Canva Smith because she was the one that was with Mario in the car with him that night. So I used her to kind of track his movements. And in her statement, she said that she had Andre Williams, that they picked up Andre Williams and they dropped Andre Williams off. And then I conflated that together with James Blackwell's statement that said that, they had stopped, that Mario had stopped by. There were some girls there. And I think he had said Andre was there, was part of that. So I was like, oh, well, they said 784 Broadway, but they must have meant that. But when I backed up and realized, like, no, when I saw Andre's trial testimony, I'm like, this is completely different. He doesn't say he was ever at that party. And then I went back and read Canvas's statement, and now that jumps out at me is like, wait a minute. They picked Andre up at the crime scene, and then they dropped him off at the crime scene. This is according to Canvas Smith, and that's her sequence of events. They drop him off at 784 Broadway. Mario goes and drops her off, and then he goes back to the crime scene to go do something in the same place he just dropped Andre off. So that was interesting. We haven't got into it yet, but even Andre, Mario's girlfriend, Rolanda Wares, in one of her statements that we'll get into later, she says that all the trouble that Mario's been getting into lately all started when he started hanging out with Andre Williams. So that was interesting. That is interesting. Also, some of the stuff that we have that's coming out in this week's episode, a question had come up in weeks past about why Mario had the trunk open. And we thought like, oh, because it was like a stereo, which I thought was weird. Like, why are you out there at 11, 12 o'clock at night blasting a stereo? Like, that seems crazy. Like opening your trunk to make it louder. I'll tell you that, and we'll see this. I do not think that was the case. The statements that we have that we're going to be going over this week say that no, he got there, was listening to the radio, and then he was opening and looking in his trunk for something. Like he was looking for something in the back. So I think that fits more into the idea that he was there to meet someone. There was something in this trunk. We did hear from, in some of the statements that we heard this week, I think it was from, I don't remember which, I think it was from Tillman maybe, or might have been from John Bradshaw, that that said that he was kind of lower level on the drug dealing happening in the neighborhood because he was the weed guy. He wasn't but did say he was a dealer. They thought he had money because he was a dealer. So I think all of that factors in. But the big thing for me was what you said, Zach, after when we were talking about this stuff off the air last week. And the first thing Zach had said is like, what just seems crazy is that the Miles family is all over this case. And you think that it's because they're like intimately connected with Mario. And then the more and more we dig into it, it's like they are all over the case, but they're not connected to Mario. It doesn't even seem like Carvale and Mario got along. Like when Mario, or like Carvale had robbed him before, maybe based on one of those statements. We had other, who was it? Canvas had said something along like that they were always getting into it. There was into it. She said over a CD. John Bradshaw, I think, statement said it was because of him stealing speakers from him or whatever. But still, they're everywhere, and even in the episode we're going to be covering this weekend, you'll see again like there's another Miles that is part of that just has this weird connections. They're just like in it. So then you look at and as I said in the episode, I don't see evidence that Carvale did this. There's some weird things about it. But if we try to, for me, when I'm trying to look at it objectively, I try to look at, okay, what could all of this mean if Carvale had nothing to do with this? And what could it mean if he did have something? And I can see arguments for both sides, right? Like if he did have some connection to the crime, then all of a sudden, all these things that keep coming up pointing at Jody that are all sourced back to Carvale. Like, is he trying to send the police in a different direction? But also at the same time, it could just be he's just trying to be honest because he had nothing to do with it. But
it's so. I mean, it's just the idea that Victoria Miles lives at 784 or lived at 784.
Yeah,
and then Jody ends up at Glenda Miles' house the night of the robbery, barefoot, and then Carvale's name gets. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, it's more than a coincidence. It feels like. These people are just all over this case.
Yeah. And also, if you like look at the maps, it's all in pretty close proximity to each other. So if you haven't looked at the maps on the website, Broadway, where the crime happened, and Pavone, where Carvale lived, those two streets they're a block away, parallel to each other. And so you look at the crime happened in the 700 block, and Carvale lived in 300 block. So they're 5 blocks away, just right down the street, one street over. So it's all kind of in pretty close proximity, but it's still not like, it's still a walk. It's still a trip from one to the other.
The one thing I caught, and I don't know how much it means anything, and I can't remember who said it, but at some point somebody in one of the statements said that Carvale was selling dope for Jerry Blackwell.
Yeah.
And Blackwell is Mario's family name, is what we've learned. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that's Mario's uncle, I believe.
Okay. I just thought that was a strange thing. I just happened to catch on. Yeah. It was weird. The other thing that you said just a minute ago, you said a lot of these statements came up after there was reward money put out.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know anything about the reward money? Was it ever picked up? I mean, was it ever given out?
Like in many cases, we never hear from who or if anybody ever received the reward money. Like the people that would jump out to me would be Sonia Lucas. Hers was like her statement literally was the linchpin of the state's case.
Right.
You know, that was so her statement coming forward. But I asked Sonia, did you get the reward money? And she said no. She said, I didn't know. I don't know that anybody got reward money. For her, she said that, you know, she was just being pushed and pressured into giving that statement, not that it was like she was being coaxed with something, from what she told me. The statement you're going to hear this weekend, the topic of Sunday's episode, would be another one of the big witnesses that maybe would have been a recipient of reward money, because they're part of the case was kind of pretty damning too. Not nearly as much as Sonia's. This is the ear witness that we're going to hear about this weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
interesting.
Who heard the car or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then who was it that McGinnis took care to say in his report about their statement? It should be noted that this person came forward, and that it would seem that the primary motivation was money.
So that was Tommy Travis, who was street name Beetlejuice. And that's a weird one too, because I've asked people, I asked Sonia about, and she didn't remember who this guy was. It wasn't somebody they knew. But yeah, McGinnis noted in that report, because he said that, and the other reports kind of leading up to it, that he went back canvassing the neighborhood, offering reward money, trying to get statements against Jody, because Jody was already locked up for the robbery, but they were trying to build the case from them. Yeah, and then this Tommy Travis guy comes up, and he was, like I said, he was kind of the impetus for Sonia's whole statement. You know, out of nowhere, he's like, "Oh, I was there at Sonia Lucas's apartment that night and was hanging out with them all night, and I saw them open the door and talk to Mario right when it happened." And then they go talk to Sonia, and she's like, "No, he wasn't there." Seems like from other things I've heard, they also talked to Mr. Lewis, her stepdad. And he was like, no, he wasn't there. They talked to Connie Lucas, who's Sonia's niece, who was there that night earlier, but she left. And when she came back, the crime scene tape was up and everything. The shooting happened while she was gone. She's like, that guy wasn't, everybody said this dude wasn't there that night.
Mm-hmm.
And then McGinnis tried to get him to take a polygraph, and he disappeared. And I think that was the biggest thing that I want to track, that I want to make sure tracks with what I was saying. When I said that this was like a game of telephone, it seems like there were elements of stories that would just jump from witness to witness to witness. So that's a good example of it, right? So Tommy Travis comes forward and says, I was there that night, and Sonia opened the door and she saw the shooter, and it was Jody Hill, and she saw the whole thing. It was Jody and Carvale. I think or Jody and another shooter, whoever it was. He tells this story. He turns out to be not credible at all. He wasn't there. But then all of a sudden, this element from his story shows up with Sonia after she said over and over and over again, I was doing the logical thing, hiding because there was people shooting in the freaking hallway. Like, I'm not out opening doors. That's stupid. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, actually I did open the door, and I asked Mario who did it, and he told me that JoJo did it. So it was like, I'm not saying this is what happened, because I can't prove that, but what it seems to me is happening is that maybe if McGinnis it seems pretty clear to me that they've manipulated this case to try to build it, right? They manipulated some evidence in one way or another. So it seems to me that he was like, okay, this guy, we can't put this guy on the stand. He's full of shit. But if we can get someone else to say that, then we can use it. And then he starts putting pressure from that point forward. He starts putting pressure on Sonia Lucas, and then gets Sonia Lucas to say, I did open the door. Right. So she takes that piece of it, just like the stalking thing with Canvas Smith. Right. Canvas Smith in originals doesn't say anything about any kind of stalking, nothing like that. And then she says, well, later she says that, she saw Sherelle at the store. By the way, somebody made a post today that I said party store. Did not know that was a regional thing. In Michigan, party store means like a little convenience liquor store type place.
Oh, yeah. For us, it means like birthday decorations.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no, for us, it's definitely like a little corner store, liquor store.
Yeah. But she said she saw him there. And then it was, who was it first? Was it LeBron Tillman, I think? Or no, it was John Bradshaw. Right. John Bradshaw gives this story and says, so we start off, she says that, oh, I also saw this blue Cadillac at the party in her second statement, right? I saw this blue Cadillac at the party store. It was just parked there. That was it. Then they go talk to Bradshaw, and now Bradshaw gives a story that says Jody was with Carvale and was stalking Jody all night. But Bradshaw's statement
stalking Mario
are stalking Mario all night. But they can't use Bradshaw either because his story's nonsense. Like you can't put this man on the stand saying that Jody confessed this story to him when nothing. There are elements there that the police knew that do show up in there, but then there's all the elements that they don't know that are impossible. So you can't use Bradshaw. But then McGinnis, at this point, Canvas Smith's in prison. So then after McGinnis talks to Bradshaw, he goes back to the prison and talks to Canvas. And now Canvas is like, actually, I forgot to tell you before,
right?
That car was following Mario around all night. And then also there was a second person in the car. And if you show me a photo lineup, I can tell you who it is. And, oh, yep, it was Carvale Miles. So the implication that I was making that is not proven, but the thing that seems like is happening to me is that McGinnis is going to these people and taking, when he interviews somebody, realizes they can't testify, but recognizes a piece of the story that might help him make his case. He takes it to another witness and then forces them or coerces them or pushes them into adding that element to their story. Because now Canvas Smith can testify because she was actually she's not having to convince a jury that Jody told me all this. And that's why I know it happened. Wherein Jody will then, of course, come up and testify and say, I didn't tell him that at all. And then the jury's got to sort that out. Instead, we go to another witness who was riding around with Mario and says, I saw this with my own eyes. I saw this thing happening.
Yeah.
But the story evolves over time. So that's and I think that was kind of the segment that you said, Janet, where you're in the time frame you were talking about in the episode that was like, what is going on here? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it was as much as that it didn't make sense as that it's just, even in what we've talked about so far, there's just a lot of people in the mix in this episode. Like, I think sometimes we have episodes where we have almost like the luxury of it really just being about this one person or these two people or these three people who were involved in this thing. And this is what each of these three people say. You had a lot that you needed to pack into this episode. Yeah. So we're hearing about new people. We're hearing about people whose names we do know. And then, so there's just a lot. It made sense that you needed to put it all into the episode. But I think it was one of those episodes where I was like, oh, I'm so glad we have these follow-up episodes. I'm so glad we have a mechanism through which the three of us can talk about it. And then also for clarification and, further expansion, like our listeners can also say, okay, here's what I'm still wondering about, or here's what stumped me in this, or,
Yeah. And it was such a weird one to set because the process started last week with me having Eric on Monday. I'm like, go into the case file in trial testimonies and pull out everything from everyone that mentions Carvale Miles. So we can, and it was like, and then I'm expecting this nice little linear piece. I'm like, the heck, what? Like, why? Yeah. None of the stories, even the same people are telling different stories every time they talk to the police.
I'd be interested to see if there's any credible evidence as to where Jody's car was. I know we believe it's out of town getting worked on, but is there any credible evidence anywhere that
we're gonna get into the we know where it was. We know where they got what the case they made at trial was that Jody took it up there and hid the car.
Okay.
That we'll get into it, but Jody, that doesn't, according to Jody, that's not what was going on. There was also in some of the statements, the Carvale talks about, or Glenda talks about Jody bringing the car over and talking to And I'm just remembering now, I didn't see that. That one might have been in the prosecutor's file and not the murder book. That Glenda had said that Jody had brought the car over to their house trying to get Carvale's stepdad or her boyfriend or whoever to fix the brakes on the car. There was confirmation from multiple places, because somebody had said that too, like, oh, it's just so convenient that all of a sudden Jody's brakes were bad. There's confirmation from multiple people that the brakes were bad, that they were having the brakes worked on.
Okay.
But we'll get into it, because we know where they, air quotes, found it.
Okay.
Which was just right where Jody had put it that day and told them that's where it is.
Gotcha. And just to draw a circle around this, like, and Jody continues to feel like this can't just be a coincidence, and all of these conversations and kind of word on the street and all of that about Carvale being involved, even though you've been back and forth a little bit, and I'm sure Jody's been back and forth with other folks about it, saying, but where's the evidence that he was involved? Jody continues to feel like, man, there's something to this. He may have been involved, or he may have been the one who did it.
Yeah, and that was, and I wasn't recording the conversation. I was just talking to them on Monday, just chatting, and it was just interesting to hear, because I'm just like kind of the tone in Jody's voice when we were having the conversation, because I told them that we're working on this episode about Carvale, and Jody's like, I've just always thought that Carvale had to be involved or the one that did it. He's like, that's what he's, everybody that comes into the prison from Benton Harbor that he talks to are all saying that, right? And then I was like, well, yeah, but Jody, we got the DNA of the person. He's like, I know, or they were like, I know, like it's confusing, but Jody is so hung up on, it's just like you said, too many coincidences. Too many people are saying this, so much so that even when the DNA came out, Jody's like, that's got to be someone that knows Carvale. Somehow that's got to be, because it just doesn't make sense to me that Carvale was not involved. And I think part of that is because it doesn't really come out so much in trial. But when you do what we did this week and you start looking through all of the different elements between Carvale and his mom and his sisters and all this stuff that comes out, like, they were, even though at trial, they weren't like the big evidence that came out, the big bombshells against Jody, but they were prodding and pushing the police in that direction the whole time, from every angle the whole time. And I think Jody, who has the advantage of knowing that they didn't actually do this, and that's what people, I think you need to realize something. I know there are people that maybe think that they did still. I don't know how, but maybe you still think that. Or maybe that there's a question in your mind. But you got to look at things from the perspective of the person that is truly knows that they're innocent, right? So, and why they would look at things in a certain light. Jody knows that Jody did not kill Mario.
Right.
And so when there's a person there that keeps pointing the police in their direction, when they know that it wasn't them, then it makes you suspicious about it.
Right.
And you get into all the, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the robbery and Sturgill changing the report and all that stuff. Imagine yourself in that position. Like, you're, as Janet said, you're obviously going to lie. They're like, oh, did you rob them? No, nobody's going to say, yes, I did actually rob them. No. Right. So they say, no, I didn't have anything to do with the robbery. And then they come out with this evidence to charge you with this robbery. And they're lying, but in the weirdest fucking way possible.
Yeah.
Imagine being in that position where Sturgill comes up, or McGinnis comes up and says, we know that you were part of that robbery because Sturgill saw you get out of the passenger side of that car and run away, saw you with his own eyes. And you're like, no, he didn't. But you can't say, I know that's a lie because I was on the other side of the car.
Right.
And so what a weird position to be in. Like, they're lying on me and I can't prove that they're lying on me, because the only way I can prove it is to admit that I was over on the other side doing something different. Like,
to be honest,
weird spot.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, like, sometimes teenagers and their parents, to be honest with you. Like, you as a teenager do something that you're not supposed to do, but then your parent, like, misunderstands the event and is like, you did this, and you want to be like, no, I did this other bad thing that I can't tell you about.
Right.
But so I'm sort of stuck in this weird position where, like, you can't really defend yourself because it means exposing yourself that you were there, which then they're just going to use against you anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's a very minor version of that, but
the same thing. Yeah. Like,
the way you were just describing that, I was like, that sounds familiar to me.
The thing that would prove them wrong would also get you in trouble.
Inculpate you, so to speak. Well, we do have some questions. I would love to actually, wouldn't this doesn't really follow the order that I was planning on, but it was something that was really coming up for me in my head as we were talking about all of this leading up to this point, which is just and it, by the way, brings us back to some questions last week that we didn't really get a chance to answer. And I'm not saying that you will know the answer or have the answer, but I did just want to acknowledge some of these questions, because as we're hearing about all of this, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are feeling like I feel, which is, God, this is just such a lot of work. I mean, for people who may not seem to care about who they put in prison or whether cases get solved in a community in which a lot of crime is happening, like, this just seems like such a lot of work to try to thread together. Okay, well, this person said this, they're not credible, but maybe if I take this little germ of what they said and apply it to this other person, that just seems like a lot. And so I'd like to just throw back to last week, a question I didn't get to read from Sarah, which is, what is it about this murder that would make it important enough to frame someone for it? It doesn't feel like the kind of murder that would generate a lot of public pressure or media attention. Is there any connection between McGinnis or any other officer and Andrew Bell? Maybe this wasn't about framing Jody, but saving Andrew. So that's kind of a different twist on questions that we've also received from people saying, like, why Jody? We don't know too much about this relationship, whatever it looked like between Jody and McGinnis. Like, why all of this work to get this one person in prison?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer to that, but I don't. I don't have any evidence to know that anyone in the case had any connection to Andrew Bell, who's the one whose DNA was on the gun shells, the casings. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's simply, I think we brought this up last week, but I think people have this idea that there was, there's hundreds of murders happening, and why this one? It is a small city. There's 4 or 5 murders a year, maybe. So any one of these murders is like an opportunity. If what Jody is saying is right, that this is an opportunity for someone who's a new detective to make a name for themselves and get the case solved, that could be motivation. If there is, based on past relationship, there's some kind of vendetta that McGinnis had towards Jody. That's a possibility as to why. And then it could be as simple as, well, it's a weird thing, but it kind of goes back to the apathy of not really caring about getting the right person, to where, the part that hopefully you caught at the beginning of the episode this week was how quickly this crime was tied to Jody.
Right.
On the scene.
Right.
McKinney gets there. The first thing that London tells him is, hey, that's the car and that's the guy from the robbery 2 days ago. And then he stops talking to him, turns and talks to Glenda Miles, and Glenda Miles says, someone came to my house yesterday and said they were going to kill Mario if he testified against or testified about the robbery. So now I was like, okay, well, there was a threat regarding the robbery about this. Those are connected. And then then they interview Carvale, and Carvale says it was Jody that did the robbery. I mean, boom, boom, boom. In a matter of minutes, they've already decided this was Jody. This was Jody based on the robbery. And the other thing, which kind of just occurred to me about what you asked earlier, as far as Zach, about the Carvale and Mario's connection.
Mm-hmm.
Just occurred to me, like, just now as I'm sitting here, why would they send someone to Carvale's house to pass that message to Jody?
Yeah, that seems.
Why wouldn't they go to Mario's house or go to James Blackwell, his uncle, or Jerry Blackwell, his uncle's house, or someone? Why would the threat happen to? And it kind of goes back to, like, why and I keep saying, I don't know if that threat happened. You heard Jody say they don't know if that threat actually happened.
That struck me as weird too, that they went there to tell Mario not to testify, but they were at Glenda Miles' house to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's very odd. I don't. Yeah, why?
And from what we know now, I mean, just in my opinion, I don't think that it was wrong of them to look at Jody at the beginning.
Yeah, with all that information that came out,
sure.
Absolutely,
great
absolutely,
point.
That's a lead.
Mm-hmm.
Great point. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of connections, also last week, and this is related, Ashton says, if McGinnis had been Jody's sponsor to get into that organization we talked about, or if he does personally know Jody, would the proper thing to do be to either take yourself off the case or have someone else take the lead?
You would think so, especially because they had this homicide task force. So there's other agencies that could have headed up the investigation. That would make sense. I mean, that's the case, and I still don't understand exactly why. I think I mentioned this last week, but Angelique Bell from episode 1 came out to the office a couple weeks ago. She spent about 3 hours here. We just hung out for a while, just chatting about the case and what's going on with it, and just kind of some future plans. But like that case is being investigated by the state police, not by the city of Benton Harbor. I don't know why. She doesn't know why, but I think it's part of that task force. It's a state police detective is heading up that investigation instead of the Benton Harbor detectives investigate. So it seems like that should have been an option. There's a bunch of other cops involved. There was Chief Dan Sullivan was involved from he's from Lincoln Township. There was Merriman from the state police post here down here in Niles. There's it's a good question. I don't know why that one. I mean, I don't know why that was done, but if he was intent on making sure they convicted Jody, I guess that's probably why they stuck with the case.
Well, that could definitely be a reason. I just want to touch on Tara's question. I think we've sort of answered it already, but Tara does say, yes, it was a bit of a confusing episode, and that Tara did come away with the impression that Carvale knew or was friends with both Jody and DeMario. Can you clarify the relationship? So where we are with that is that Jody and Carvale were friends.
Yeah.
And then and then Carvale and Mario had a little, perhaps a more antagonistic relationship.
Seems like it. I mean, Carvale makes it sound like they were friends. From Mario's friends doesn't sound like so much at all. Mm-hmm. And Mario, remember, suspect from Mario's best friend. And that to me was an important piece of this puzzle to me, because that is someone with no skin in the game. He's not pointing the fingers at anybody. He tells the detectives that Mario told him that he thought Carvale was part of the robbery, that he was involved with it. He was responsible for it in one way or another. So I think it's important to know that that's who Mario thought did it, even though we know that Carvale wasn't the one. It was Jody that was there. But it also tells you about that relationship between the two of them, that they weren't super close friends.
Paulie says, I'm wondering if Carvale still lives in Benton Harbor. Is that somebody that you try to get in touch with, Bob? Do you know if he would meet you for an interview? Paulie says. He said does seem to know everyone in the case.
I got to think about. There are people in the case that I am not going to be contacting right now because I've been requested not to.
Okay.
So that's all I can say about that. And Carvale's on that list.
Gotcha. Let's go back to last week for a moment. When actually it might be the week before that, but when McKinney wrote Pavone Street instead of Broadway Avenue on his report, Melanie is wondering, could it somehow actually be intentional? She says, I can't seem to shake the feeling that the fact that Carvale Miles lived on Pavone with his mom is connected to what we are attributing to as a mistake.
I don't know, because they didn't live at 784 Pavone.
Right.
They lived up in the 300 block of Pavone. So I don't know. That's a weird, because I mean, the number is accurate. And he's describing where he's at. Could be just because he was there talking to all the Mileses who were saying that they live at 392 Pavone or wherever that was. So maybe that's what I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. Anna says, how in the world were there 4 different accounts of the robbery? Do you think it's because each of those people had something personal to gain from the story they told?
I don't know. Well, first of all, I think you mean that there are 4 different accounts of Mario's movements on the night of the murder. So I guess I'll start there and then I'll back into the robbery, because there were 4 different, completely separate accounts of that night. I don't know, because I think these are the things you run into when you have police with blinders on that have already made up their mind who did it. They seem to be based on what, and now this is not from me, this is from the people that were being interviewed by them that have come forward and said this. They were being pressured by police to change stories. They were being pressured to lie. They were being offered rewards to give information about Jody for the case. When you start throwing all of that into the mix, then all of a sudden you start getting all these stories, because they're not true, right? We know, like, only one of those 4 stories can be true. You can't, 3 of them have to be lying or wrong or incorrect, whatever. And then you throw in, we also don't know who is actually connected to the case, right? Maybe some of those people that are giving the information were actually involved in the murder, or they're protecting someone who is involved in the murder. There's a million different things out there, and that's why the thing is such a mess. Because, yeah, why is Carvale saying he was hanging out at the Blackwells all night when his mom says he never left the house all day that day, and the Blackwells don't say that he was there that day? But they say Andre was there, but Andre says he's on Lake Street, but then Canvas says she's dropping Andre off at the crime scene. Like there's so many unknowns, and there's too many catalysts in there to get people to give false information, between rewards, between threats, between pressure, between trying to protect somebody. And then, like I said, probably a better apt title for this episode would have been "Everybody's Lying."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see, Chris, your comment in the live chat right now, and actually melds with a comment that we got in the follow-up on YouTube, in the follow-up on Facebook. Julie says, regarding the person who was friends with Jody and gave them a ride back to Jody's house, why did Jody never speak to that person again? I got the impression the two of them were friendly enough before the robbery. Is it just because Jody was almost immediately imprisoned, or was there some sort of altercation that led to them not speaking to each other again?
So and this ties in with, I think you said with Chris in the chat here, two different things. So you said that the person that gave Jody the ride back to their house never talked to them again. That's not who Jody said they never spoke to again. Jody said Carvale, after the robbery, gave them a ride back to their car, that they had their car parked at some church and they gave him a ride back to the car. They never spoke to him again. The reason for that was, so that was, the robbery happened on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday, Jody was working. Thursday, Jody was working. And then Friday, Jody's arrested. So, I don't know if it was intentional not to speak to them again, but they never had the opportunity to, they never got to get back into town to hang out, because Jody lived out in the Highlands, which is a little ways outside of town. They didn't live right there in the heart of where all this stuff was happening. So that's that, but that's Carvale. Cornelius is what Chris was asking about in the YouTube chat. She said that, what about the guy who drove Jody home that night? Would love to see his time card to see if it matches Jody's. So that's Cornelius. And I would love to see it too, Chris. And that was one of the things when I interviewed LaShawn was, do you still by any chance have all those records? And they don't. They were, that was back. Everything's computerized now. It wasn't computerized then. They were all like paper. They have moved locations since then. And they had the classic, had flooding in a basement at one point where they had threw out a bunch of paperwork. But LaShawn said that they probably wouldn't still have stuff from 23, a timesheet from 23 years ago. Anyway, so unfortunately we don't have that. I mean, LaShawn and Cornelius, the three of them that were there that night, that left that night, all confirmed the same story. They just didn't have the exact time because they weren't asked. Sean was asked the time the very next morning, gave him a time, and then they never made a report on it, never noted it, never did anything with it. And then it was a year later before trial, they go back and they're saying, what time did it happen? And nobody really knew at that point.
Sorry. We keep losing Zach, so it almost seemed like Zach was about to say something that time, so I was really just
I wasn't.
And then he went away. Okay. So Sarah, just kind of still puzzling through this mystery that we talked about last week about the shotgun being in the car. Why, we've talked about it many times. Why didn't the police see it? Or if they did see it, why didn't they seize it? All that kind of stuff. So Sarah's just wants some clarification on whether Officer Sturgill stayed at the scene of the robbery, or did he try and pursue suspects, wondering if Mario had an opportunity to move the shotgun into the trunk or something.
No, Sturgill never left the scene. So, well, as we know from Sturgill, not an athlete, which is why he was removed from the police force when they found out that he had his roommate take his physical agility test for him to become a police officer. But no, I guess I'll say it in the way that Jody says that it happened. So as Sturgill is pulling up, and by the way, that was a bigger deal than I think, really big deal to me when I realized what I talked about in the episode this week, that Sturgill in the trial testimony literally changed the direction he approached the scene from.
Yeah.
Completely different from the direct. But so what really happened, based on his own words and Jody's account, is is Leon's in the car with Mario. They're fighting over the shotgun. Jody comes up out of the side, out of the bushes, puts the gun to Mario's head. Police car, they struggle over it. Shot goes off. Sturgill pulls up behind them. Leon jumps out of the passenger side and takes off running, and he's gone. Sturgill starts making his way towards Jody and Mario over the gun. Jody drops the gun and takes off and runs and is gone. Sturgill gets on the radio. Jody cuts through the woods and gets right straight. And if you go on the website and look at the diagram and see how close it is, scoots through the woods, through the little path in the woods, and gets to Carvale's house and is hiding. Leon is just walking down the street, and London sees Leon walking down the street, picks him up, and brings him back to the scene. Sturgill never left the scene that night. Also, while we're on that topic, because there were some people looking at that diagram and stuff saying, well, if they pulled it behind him, then Jody would have had to run right past Sturgill, whose car was parked behind them when all this happened. You have to remember, like, this is a dynamic scene. It's dark. Things are moving fast. They were fighting outside the driver's side of the door of the car. When the cop came before them, Jody ran in front of the car back over to the curbside and around that way. So just when you look, because some people look at the diagram that I had drawn, look at the arrow, and like, well, that arrow shows them running right directly past Sturgill. It's like that's the direction they were going. But no, they wouldn't have run right past Sturgill. They ran around the car and into the darkness.
Gotcha. Sorry. Erica, I'm so sorry. Making a lot of noises today. Okay. So I'm sure we'll be getting deeper into this when we are talking more specifically about the trial, but Nick was just looking for some clarification about who testified, what did they testify to, about the robbery specifically. Like, who, can you remind us who, if anyone, testified at the murder trial, since there was no robbery trial of any kind or anything? Who's talking about the robbery at the trial itself and not the murder? Is Jody testifying? Are Jessica testifying? Sturgill, Glenda? Who's up there?
Sturgill was the main one for the robbery that testified about that. And that's where that's the clip I put on that diagram where he completely changed his story at his testimony. His testimony was about what happened, how he identified Jody, and then ID'd Jody for the jury. Jessica Pratt also testified. And she was just the one that said she saw the two people approaching the car. And then loosely Glenda Miles testified because she just testified about Jody coming to their house before and after. And Carvale testified to that too. And that was also another big, these are things that I took to be kind of fact, because I took to be true because they're so consistently repeated through the testimony. So Jody going to Carvale's house and asking Carvale to participate in the robbery. When I first breezed through the case file, I had always assumed, that's why, like I told you guys weeks ago, like I've always just assumed Jody did do the robbery. That was part of it. It was like, well, yeah, Glenda said he was there before the robbery asking Carvale. Carvale says he was there, or says they were there. But then when they get on the stand and you read that, and I encourage you to do that, the testimonies are up on our website. When you read through that testimony, and Glenda is talking about how they were there hanging out, asking Carvale if he wanted to do this robbery. Then I went and I see this gold shotgun in my bathroom. I'm like, get those guns out of here, get it out of here. Then Carvale gets on the stand and he's like, yeah, we were standing on the front porch. They asked me to do that. And they're like, well, how do you know what gun they had? And he said that, well, Leon pulled that shotgun halfway out of his pants and showed it to me and stuffed it back in his pants. And that's when White is like, when was the gun in the bathroom? And he was like, no. Oh, well, they were in the bathroom. So now they're on the porch. Now they're in the bathroom. There's this whole exchange back and forth, but it's still just nothing. So the stories don't jive at all. And then you got keep going back to what Zach had said. Like, the Miles family is all over this. Like, the reason we believe that Jody went to Carvale's house to ask Carvale to be a part of a robbery is because Carvale said so, and Carvale's mom said so. But Carvale and his mom's stories don't line up with anything, not with that incident, not with where Carvale was at the day of the murder. Like, they conflict with each other all the time. And whether he's actually involved or just because he knows there's the allegations floating around that he was involved, there is a motive there to try to alibi him, to cleanse himself of any involvement and to point the direction other places. As we've said with every case, there's lots of different reasons to lie. It could be you're lying because you're involved, or it could be you're lying because people think you're involved and you're worried about that, and so you're trying to push things the other way. But I'm not convinced after this. I'm not convinced at all that Jody actually went to Carvale's house and asked him to participate in the robbery. Because first of all, why? Why do you need 3 people to rob one guy? Which I hadn't really thought about before. You got 2 armed people that for some reason need a third person to rob the guy that they say, well, that's according to John Bradshaw, is an easy target because Carvale had robbed him before. I don't know.
Power in numbers. Can we touch on the shotgun really quick? I know you touched on the episode, but I don't know that you explained it super well.
Okay.
You discussed that in the report they found 2 shotgun shells, and then you said because it's a single shot shotgun that wouldn't occur, which is true.
Well, I just said that it wouldn't get like accidentally ejected in the struggle.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that people are understanding. Like a single shot shotgun, which is what Leon had, is considered it's called a break action. And you physically have to open the gun and remove the shell. Yeah. Like what a lot of people see for shotguns is they see that even if it's a pump shotgun, that auto eject where they'll rack it and the shell will go flying out, just like it would in a pistol after you shot.
Yeah.
A break action, a single shot shotgun is a lot different. Like it requires you to actually open it to take the shell out.
Yeah, there's like a lever you got to push with your thumbs, slide it to the side. That's usually spring loaded and it's pretty hard to push. And then you literally like break the shotgun, like and fold it in half, and then pull the shell out of the barrel of the gun.
So you're not finding. I mean, it's just not the way it would work. I don't.
Well, and there's a possibility that it could have been like other possibilities how it could get there. Maybe he just had a couple shotgun shells and extras in his pocket that fell out, but nothing had. So Jody had told me before that at some point his family member or something had gotten the file for the robbery. And he said in the original report, they said that they found 2 shotgun shells in Leon's pocket.
Okay.
And so, but then, and I never, of course, I can't get that file. It doesn't exist anywhere in the murder book. So I don't know. I'm just taking Jody's word for it, but it just is what it is. And then I see, and when McKinney talks to London, he mentions they found 2 shotgun shells. But in the report he writes, because remember, they want Jody to have been the one with the shotgun. So now they say instead of the 2 shotgun shells being found in Leon's pocket, the 2 shotgun shells were found in the car, which is complete nonsense because the only way they could find 2 shotgun shells in the car would be if they searched the car. And how are you going to search the car and find 2 3-inch long shotgun shells and not see the gold painted shotgun in the car? There's no way.
Right. Okay, couple last things. That's pretty much it for clarification about this episode and some of the stuff that we talked about last week. Crystal would love to know if Jody has an attorney currently.
No.
And then Julie says, regarding the issue of Jody's limited time on the phone, you mentioned in an earlier episode follow-up that the 15-minute cutoff is the limit for free daily calls, daily with a question mark, like just looking for clarification on this. But also, can we contribute to Jody's phone fund so they can have longer conversations with you?
You can contribute to their phone fund through JPay. I believe it's through JPay, maybe through Securus. I don't do that because I just always, because of, oftentimes I end up working in the case like all the way, possibility of even having to testify at trial. So I never want it to be I was paying the inmate or the individual in prison for information. You can do that, but that's not the issue as far as the timing goes. So the prison gives, based on that lawsuit, once a week they get a free 10-minute phone call. That's just free. Other than that, the phone calls are still 15 minutes. The ones they pay for are 15-minute long phone calls. And they get, so usually twice a day they have, it's like yard time, and that's when you can use the phone. And there's, like Jody said, there'd be, 90 people trying to use a handful of phones during the hour period they have So that's why they're limited to 15 minutes. So they get on and off. Usually if it's like early in the morning, the phone's open, and that's what, but they also have like a timer on it. So after you're disconnected after the 15 minutes, you have to wait another 15 minutes before you're allowed to get back on it again. And so the purpose of that is so that, they don't have people fighting and killing each other over a phone, because somebody can't just like finish their 15 minutes, hang up and call right back and just stay on the phone the whole time. They have to wait. They have to step away from the phone for 15 minutes, then get back on, then their code will work again and they can get back on the phone. So that's why. So normally they're 15 minutes. Once a week, they get 10 minutes. In Jody's case, a couple of times they've had their bunkie who didn't have anybody to call use their free 10-minute call after I talked to Jody and gave them the phone so that we could have an extra 10 minutes to talk.
Gotcha. Well, that's all we have for this week.
All right. Coming up on Sunday, we're going to be talking about the ear witness, which is the kind of the two main elements that are and that I use that term loosely, but the two things that actually tied Jody to the crime scene were Sonia Lucas in her dying declaration, which she has fully recanted now, and said that was completely made up by McGinnis. And the other one was the ear witness, and that's coming up on Sunday. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Off with the audio. Oh, yeah. Chris pointed out that it's amazing the restaurant's still up and running. I actually haven't been, because when we were up doing a bunch of interviews up in that area. They were redoing the roof or something, so the restaurant was closed. But it's actually it's in Benton Township now. Zach, over by where like what is it, Hungry Howie's or whatever that place is?
Yeah,
it's right over there is where Dialo's is now. It's not in the city anymore.
I think my guys had it the other day, actually.
Did they?
I think the crew at the shop had it the other day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. We'll have to go there for lunch sometime. And with that, I think we're gonna end things here. Got to get this episode written this week. This one should be much smoother. Although I will tell you that as Zach saw me and Erica's laying it out on the whiteboard out there, we had to make a chart for this is what this witness said the first time. This is how they changed it the second time. This is how they changed it the third time. And this is what they said at trial.
Oh my.
So there is some of that. And then we literally have it in a graph, like regarding the window, this is the changes. Regarding their movements, this is the changes. Regarding this is the changes that they made all the way throughout, trying to make it a little bit more clear. But and I've got 2 calls out that could really blow the roof off this whole thing if I can get an answer to these questions. One of the people that's part of this, they worked at a place that I know the owner of. And part of their timing with when they left didn't make sense to me. So I have an email into the owner saying, 1, can you just tell me what your shifts are?
Yeah.
When you think anybody that does shift work, let me just ask you you guys, any of them, first shift, a 24-hour factory job, first shift, second shift, third shift. What times do you consider like second shift to end?
I want to say like 10.
Well, if you have well, I don't know. Factory stuff is different.
Everything
sometimes
is
people
different,
come in at 5 a.m. Sometimes it starts at 7 a.m.
Typical, and this is why I've asked the question, because the typical one is 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's pretty, So we're coming in the chats here, 11. Yeah. Generally, second shift ends at 11. So this person says they work second shift, but then, which is conveniently fits in with everything, they say they got off work at midnight. And same thing. Tara said same things there. Same times I just said. Could be different. I don't know. But I know people that have worked there. I know the business owner, and I feel like I know their shifts ended at 11. So them getting off at midnight doesn't track. So that's the big thing, is I'm trying to find out what time did the shifts end. And then I've kind of put in there, and if you really want to do me a favor, could you go back to November 15th, 2001 and tell me what time this person clocked out?
Oof.
So, but that's one call. The other call I don't want to expose yet, but I have someone working on something that if we're able to find it, will with 100% certainty tell us what time this crime happened.
Question in the chat real quick. Show question. What time will we be changing when school starts? So next Tuesday.
Yep.
But what time do they?
What time do we start? 7 p.m. Eastern time. Pre-game starts at 7. The public live stream starts at 8. Starting next week. Right in the middle of my trivia time. Damn it. All right. I gotta go. All
right.
That's
one thing. Brian's got a question. Was the name of the person whose prints on the gun Andrew? Yes. Andrew Bell was the one whose prints were, or not prints, whose DNA was found on the shell casings.
Wait, I thought we went 4 to 6 my time, 7 to 9 your time. Did you just say that?
So, yeah, 7 to 9.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, 4 to 6 for you. Okay. We're gonna end this thing. Thanks everybody. Love you all. Love you, Janet. See you guys.
Bye,
guys.
See you, Rada.